Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to the Pan American headquarters. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember, on this flight, if you look to your right, you might be sitting next to a spy. If you look to your left, a cheating husband. Isn't flying exciting? Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Rich Inman and Max Singer. Boys, it is Oscars week. How are you doing?
I'm good, but that intro of yours made me nervous because you're in the middle of my my Riverside screen right now, so I don't know who's to your left and who's to your right. But
I was so worried I was so excited that you were going to say service to the sky, but you did not say that. Also, I want to say that this is this being our first aviation-themed episode. I'm going to be eating a very small bag of pretzels throughout the entire episode.
For all of our ASMR fans, you know.
Well, on the Patreon, we'll just have Rich's audio separately, so you can just fall asleep to that.
It's what the people want.
Oh my gosh. Well, boys, this week we are doing Pan Am. I'm really excited to be getting into a show that was technically a show that was on while we were in school, surprisingly. But
I mean, it's shows like this that actually gave us the idea for the podcast in the first place, because we're just like, we went through all of our favorite shows like Parks and Rec or, you know, this or, you know, Mad Men or something like that. This was not one of our favorite shows, but it like really was like, oh my God, how did this get made? Oh, we're not trademarked. I shouldn't mention our clear competitor.
Yeah, Rich said all of that with lowercase, just as the heads up. That was spoken in lowercase.
Yeah. This is very much a type of show that like caused us to want to make this podcast, which Max, you've been wanting to do this show for quite a while, actually.
This has been on my bucket list since episode 1. I'm so excited.
Max keeps all of his ideas in a bucket.
Well, Max, for folks who might be joining us for the first time or are frequent flyers with us, do you mind telling them what this podcast is all about?
So, here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn a little bit more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes that make us want to watch more, and if we think they could be made today. Go back and stream our old flights from wherever you get podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And Rich, what is your question of the week?
Well, obviously we all know about this infamous franchise this infamous show that could have been a franchise that was probably a Mad Men knockoff at its inception. So I couldn't think of like many things to ask about that were like show related, because we're going to get into a lot of it. I wanted to know, because this is like this is like TikTok's favorite like toxic masculinity checking question. Do you think in an emergency situation you could land a plane?
Oh my God. Thank you so much for asking this.
And believe me, I'm going to send the responses to both of your wives.
I have actually talked about this question with multiple people before to just gauge the idea of how much of an ego do you have, or how much self-awareness do you have?
You're a guy. If you're not talking about can I land a 737, it's your remembrance of guy. There's only 2 topics of conversation we have.
So my answer, like, at first when I thought about it, I was like, sure, someone will guide me through. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, absolutely not. There's so many things. Like, even if you watch this pilot, you see the cockpit of a old Pan Am plane in the 1960s, and I'm even like, that looks like way too much stuff that I could accidentally press or touch. That plane, in the best case scenario, I am hypothetically crashing it into an empty field, and maybe we like half of the plane survives. Worst case scenario, it's not a good scenario. We don't want to talk about that scenario.
What about you, Max?
No. Have you seen how many switches are on that board?
It's more than your Nintendo Switch.
Absolutely not. I am confident enough in my masculinity to admit when I cannot do a skill, and I could absolutely not land a plane. I don't have any intention of wanting to learn how to fly a plane. I barely want to fly on a plane.
Max is a big train guy. If Amtrak is listening, please sponsor us.
We love a snack car, baby.
Rich, what about you?
So I actually, when I was about 10 or 11, played a lot of Windows Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Oh yeah.
Had a little joystick and everything, and I could say with complete sincerity that absolutely not. I would not be able to land a plane. I couldn't even do it in a fucking video game where almost everything was automated, unless they showed it to me like a big speak and spell with like differently shaped buttons. Like, okay, press this one that looks like a cow. All right, now press this one that looks like a balloon. And if they did that for me every single step, I'd probably still fly it straight into a mountain.
Like the pianos where the keys line up to teach you the chords.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god! Like I go back to I was watching the Top Gun Maverick, the sequel to Top Gun, the other day, and they have that one scene where they show Tom Cruise do the test in like half the time that they were going to give to the 20-year-olds with better reaction times. And I'm just watching that, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're crashing on the first turn. It's not even like it's not.
I wouldn't be able to turn it on. There's no push to start. It's not a Honda Accord.
Now, if you just asked Max, do you think that you could just drive the plane around the tarmac for a little bit? Absolutely. I would love to just take it for a spin.
Max wants the Zamboni version of an airplane.
A nice cool 10 miles per hour on the runway, 100%.
I'm just thinking about that one scene in Super Troopers where they try to turn on the big rig and none of them can do it. And they're just sitting there for like 3 minutes trying to turn on a big rig. That's what I'm imagining Max, you doing. You're just like, all right, we're going to drive it around the tarmac. And it's just like, Max, you broke the plane. Like, we can't even do
I don't even know how to drive stick. How the fuck?
Oh my god. Well, Rich, thank you for that delightful question of the week. Let's talk a little bit more about Pan Am, and we're going to start off with a quick synopsis. A period drama about the pilots and flight attendants who once made Pan Am the most glamorous way to fly. Which,
sure.
If you told me that synopsis was written by someone who had no idea what was happening on this show, very similar to the three of us, I would say yes. But Max, I'm genuinely curious, how did this show get made?
Today, we are talking about the pilot of ABC's Pan Am. That's pilot as in the premiere episode, not the character of Dean Lowry, who is the pilot on this TV flight, which originally aired on September 25th, 2011 on ABC. We're going to be talking about the show's creators, Nancy Holt-Gannis and Jack Orman. So Sony Pictures Television acquires the right to all the Pan Am trademarks to begin development on a new series. They enlist TV movie producer and former Pan Am stewardess Nancy Holt-Gannis as executive producer and advisor to all departments in the production. After leaving Pan Am, Gannis received her master's in journalism from Cal Berkeley, worked on various documentary features, spent time as Steven Spielberg's assistant, and worked in production and marketing on feature films. In 1996, she forms the company Out of the Blue Entertainment with her husband, who are behind films including the Deuce Bigelow franchise, Mr. Deeds, Big Daddy, and Aquila and the Bee.
No.
Shut the fuck up. That's amazing.
Wait, they went from Big Daddy to Aquila and the Bee?
I feel like everyone has that moment. It's like Jay Roach going from doing the Austin Powers movies to Bombshell with Margot Robbie, or like the Farrelly brothers winning Oscars for Green Book. Like, you get that one bit of critical cachet.
Hey, look, the Daniels before they made what is it? What's the one with Daniel
Everything
Radcliffe?
Everywhere All at Once.
Everything Everywhere All at Once, but also the one where Daniel Radcliffe like fights
Swiss Army Man.
Swiss Army Man. They did the music video for Turn Down for What? I guess like you gotta start somewhere.
Cinema. So in prep for Pan Am, she draws from her own experience with the airline, but also utilized the Pan Am archives from the University of Miami and the Pan Am Historical Society consulting on everything from actor performances, props and costumes, to even tiny details as described by Gannis as how to chew gum and whether or not a Pan Am employee would be seen drinking out of an open can or cup in public. Joining the creative team are Jack Orman and Thomas Schlamme as the show finds a home at ABC in May of 2011. Orman serves as the show's co-creator and writer of today's pilot, and is best known as a writer and executive producer on JAG and ER, and not as well known as the creator of Dr. Vegas, starring Rob Lowe and Joe Pantoliano, which lasted...
Can we stop and all watch Dr. Vegas and just have this be a Dr. Vegas episode? What the fuck is that?
Dr. Vegas is a show from 2004 at CBS that lasted 5 episodes.
Wow.
We're watching it. It's done. Done deal.
Honestly, what are the odds of that?
And then our boy Tommy Schlamme is a veteran of TV Pilot's license, having served as executive producer and director of the Studio 60 pilot, and also helps today's episode. We also
and
just
the
have
West
to get
Wing.
into the West Wing, Aaron Sorkin's creative collaborator, the inventor of the walk and talk shot, Tommy Schlamme, everyone. We need to get into this cast really quick, because even if you don't think you know every name, you know a lot of these faces. We've got so many people who are either pre-fame, on the cusp of things, former teen heartthrobs. It's really fantastic. You've got Margot Robbie in her very first American role, coming off a very successful run on the Australian soap opera Neighbours, which is about to hit 9,000 episodes.
Jesus.
You've got a very small part pre-Peaky Blinders fame, Annabelle Wallis as Bridget in here. Christina Ricci, Emmy-nominated Yellow Jackets, Wednesday Addams herself, coming off of a leading role in the film adaptation of Speed Racer right before this. You've got Kelly Garner as Margot Robbie's sister, who had just starred in Lars, the Real Girl, across from Ryan Gosling. Even getting into some of the guys of our pilots, Michael Mosley, who plays kind of like the comic relief co-pilot. He starred in the ABC season of Scrubs that we don't talk about. You've got...
That's where I know his face. Yeah. Holy shit. I watched that season.
Mike Vogel, who plays Captain Dean Lowry, former teen heartthrob. You might remember him from movies like Supercross, Grind, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, also adult roles like She's Out of My League and Blue Valentine. A really terrible double feature to watch back to back.
You started with Supercross? You started with Supercross.
Yeah, man, I had to build up. I had to build up to She's Out of My League.
Max, you're burying the lead that we also get David Harbour.
You also get David Harbour. You didn't let me finish. I was too busy talking about She's Out of My League.
Also, that is... David Harbour doing some excellent accent work, if I can say so myself.
The funniest part about this is like, and can we just dive into this nonsense of a pilot?
One more fun fact. This pilot, sky-high aspirations, pun intended. ABC spent $10 million on this episode alone.
Oh my God.
Can I admit something super embarrassing?
The deck is stacked today. Rich, go ahead.
I need to admit something super embarrassing. When I saw David Harbour speaking in the Russian accent and then in the British accent, and I saw that his name was spelled Habour, I Googled to see whether or not he was British.
That's fair. We've got at least one Australian in this cast, like playing girls from Long Island. So like that's very fair.
I would just love it if an entire cast of people all had to play different accents than they're used to.
That would be a really fun game of guess whose accent is the real accent.
Is that almost The Wire? Is that kind of what The
Wire is? Well, let's dive into this $10 million pilot, which is ridiculous. And we get this opening shot, and I think that $9.9 million of the budget of this pilot went into the CGI that was used on this show. Because we get a picture of what I believe was old LaGuardia when it wasn't under construction, which seems like, back in the 60s.
It looks like the renderings when you walk into an airport. It's like a brand new experience is coming.
Wait, so is it LaGuardia? Because or is it Idlewild, which is what JFK used to be called?
They never tell us,
okay.
Which is that was the thing that I was waiting for. Is if you, just from the start, if you are watching this show and are expecting to get details about the characters and their backgrounds, any form of exposition as far as where we are, what we're doing, all of those things, unless the character says it out loud, you are going up, you're finding yourself with false ambitions and with false desires, because this show gives you so little detail to start that it is so goddamn upsetting to me. Let's just start off with, we get this beautiful shot of LaGuardia. We start seeing pilots like being these superheroes. They're trying to make pilots be like these modern day like warriors or knights.
Yeah, they're checking people's tickets at the gates. They're doing the check-in there. Whatever happened to service? What am I paying for?
Did you also so one thing that this show doesn't say out loud, but we're expected to understand, is this show is based in the 1960s. They never say that aloud.
1963.
Jeff, the first Chiron we see on screen says New York 1963.
All right,
no, I never saw
Jeff
that.
is going to learn to read eventually, and that's fine.
Yeah. You know what? You have to say things out loud for me to get it. But just seeing the security situation in this airport that we can debate about just brought me
I'm so sorry. Max immediately checked you on that. Max immediately checked you on that after we spent an entire month watching things in different languages that you had to watch all those subtitles for.
Max was so into this pilot that he refuses for us to not miss a detail. He's been waiting so long to do this pilot.
It's 1963. 1963. It's in 1963.
1963. How dare you? You could have told also by the Christina Ricci in The Village. You could see that he was typing on a typewriter. It had to have been 1963.
Yeah, she's wearing a black beatnik turtleneck, and it's not called JFK Airport yet.
Yeah, it's about to be, but you're about to find out why. Well, here's the thing: as soon as I saw Tommy Schlammy's name, because obviously, which is hilarious,
distracted.
I literally cannot stop thinking about that name. I immediately thought, oh, they put this in 1963. It's Tommy Schlamme. They're going to do something super ham-fisted about him getting assassinated in this show. They're going to try to really throw that in there because they can't get enough of it. I don't know if Tommy Schlamme worked on was it The Newsroom, the Aaron Sorkin, The Newsroom, but this has The Newsroom written all over it.
So one of the scenes that is our first instance is we see one of our protagonists, Margot Robbie, in this role as Laura, right? Who is a flight attendant who had her picture in Life magazine. And meanwhile, as she's almost seen as like the face of flight attendants, the face of Pan Am, we also get that stark contrast of watching her be weighed in, be, nitpicked on how her outfit looks. She's not wearing tights. She also, you can tell that there is contempt for her by this woman who's almost like the headmaster of flight attendants.
What is this headmistress job for this? It's really insane. I mean, I guess this is like the golden age of like the Playboy Club and this kind of thing where you just have to be so in uniform.
Rich, we're doing the Playboy Club next week. Don't worry.
Oh, great. Cool.
Yeah, you do see like both sides of it. You see obviously the glitz and glamour of like, wow, like, airports, even the terminals are crisp and pristine and everyone's well dressed. And it's like behind closed doors, there's just like the rampant like sexism and things like that like, make the illusion so grand. And it's just like, it's impossible to think about that kind of stuff nowadays. But I mean, it's not like, it's also at the same time very much not, but it also just sets up like, it's the same thing with the Mad Men pilots where it's like, hey, we're in the 60s. We're in the 60s. Totes like,
So like
here's a full bar on an airplane. Here you go.
One of the things that I think this show does try to cram down your throat, though, is the idea of, okay, so these flight attendants were treated almost to this extremely high standard of brand and image. But at the same time, there's more going on than them just being flight attendants, because we get this absolutely bonkers scene where, one, am I upset that a magazine, cigarettes, and gum cost 68 cents? Yes, I'm very upset that
It should be less.
It should be much less. But also, the idea that one of our flight attendants, Kate Cameron, appears to be a spy, and that's just thrown at us in the first 5 minutes of this pilot, is bonkers.
Yeah, I realized at this moment, where like when they revealed that she's a spy, which is pretty early on, I think, that was like, oh, this is not going to be like Mad Men. And Mad Men relied on like the mistaken identity thing as like the draw, that's the TV drama of it, or taking someone else's identity. But yeah, it felt a little, I don't know, felt a little forced.
So I've never seen this show before. I don't know about you guys. This is my first time watching Pan Am. And so when this happened, when just the mysterious trench-coated and fedora man says to Kate, "Are you ready for your first assignment?" I lost my mind. So I was like, oh, I have no idea what show I picked.
Yeah.
This is outrageous. I love this.
Yeah, it is quite a choice to make this immediately a spy thriller. But if we are thinking about it, like, I don't know what they would have chosen above this if they are trying to go off the Mad Men formula, or like the nostalgia formula, I guess. Like, you have to add something else in there.
But trying to do an espionage thriller while also having the like Disney strings music playing throughout this, Pan Am has all of the teeth of Forrest Gump. There is absolutely no backbone to this show. It is pure puff in every lighting choice, cutscene, orchestral arrangement. It is the most cotton candy show imaginable.
So I'm glad that you bring that up, Max, because there's this instance where we have this realization that Kate turns out to be a spy of some sorts. We don't know for whom. But they don't really let us in on the storyline of that until like 20 minutes later, where they do this gigantic cutscene in Rome. Like, it would have been such a smart choice if they were like, hey, you know what? When he hands her the papers, do a quick little small cutscene where it's just like, oh, this is what happened. She is in Pan Am. Like, there's an editing choice that wasn't made here that could have been so strong and help us be like, yeah, I'm bought in. Oh, I see why this flight attendant is a spy. But instead, they're like, you don't need to know right now. We'll tell you later. Like,
no,
why don't you keep on watching?
We get 10 minutes of boarding a flight scene. We get 10 minutes of making sure everyone finds their seats. We get this Disney's Epcot soaring over California adventure ass music playing in the background as people get glasses of champagne and newspapers, and David Harbour does the most ridiculous Russian accent you've ever heard in your life.
I love it.
Yeah, he definitely improved on that Russian accent when he was in the Scarlet Widow movie with Black Widow movie with Scarlett Johansson. Yes, I did screw up a Marvel movie.
It's 2 colors, that's fine.
I've got to give an award to Pan Am. It's a very prestigious TVPL award, and it is the worst line to end a cold open award.
Oh my god! Oh, Max, could you deliver it? Could you deliver it as read?
That's going to go to Kate Cameron, to her sister Laura Cameron. Better buckle up. Adventure calls.
Yeah, that sucked.
And then we got the Pan Am, just the gigantic logo flying across the screen, which was insane. The other thing, and we're skipping over, is our introduction to Christina Ricci, right? And her character of Maggie. I don't understand why Maggie was such an important person to have on this plane. Why is she different than every other flight attendant?
You're going to find out later this season.
Yeah, I better find out later this season. But like, the idea of like, oh, I'm on the no-fly list, like she says that right from the start. I was like, oh, what did she do? And then you're like, oh, she didn't wear a girdle.
Yeah, that's the thing. She's like, don't you remember? I'm grounded. I can't fly a plane. I'm in Midtown.
It's this absurd scene. And then they're like, go to go to the headquarters. We're going to fly you on a helicopter to the airport. And then you better have your uniform properly on. And then we get this intro of like, oh yeah, now we're stuck on a plane for the rest of this episode.
I'm a big fan of when we meet Maggie in her apartment. She says what? She's in the village. She's in the village. Midtown that fast. You got fucking Allen Ginsberg hammering away behind her on a keyboard, trying to type some fucking beatnik poetry. It's just like, hey, remember, we're in the 60s.
Well, I'm honestly shocked that both of you guys didn't mention the, I think my favorite line of the cold open, which was Margot Robbie finding that Time magazine cover of herself. And she's a little embarrassed by it. Like, she's only been working there for 3 weeks, and she freezes and says, oh, no.
I mean, it's been some years. Like, that's the other thing that I find so interesting about this is and we've touched on it a little bit, the dialogue in this show is full of choices. Like, full of a lot of really interesting choices as far as, like, it's not really period. It's not really good. It just happens to be on the page, and the actors
I know you're not talking down on the writing from the creator of Dr. Vegas.
A show we have all heard before this moment.
The one thing that I will say, as far as like performances so far, up to this point, that I was just like, you know what? I'm happy this human being is here, is like Michael Mosley as Ted was exactly what I wanted. I wanted a little bit of like this uplifting, like jokey-esque character who's just shooting the shit. Probably, is there a dramatic backstory about Ted that we're going to find out later about why he's just a co-pilot and not a pilot? 100%. But like in the now, this guy where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just here to hook up with women who happen to also be on this plane, was just like, okay, this is the Mad Men character.
So kind of getting to know the rest of our crew here, since we're talking about Ted, our co-pilot, we also have another stewardess by the name of Colette, who's this like, she's like the sassy, take no shit French stewardess on Pan Am, adding that, certain je ne sais quoi to the show. There's a great cut right after the cold open, the first scene back, they're doing drink service, and she's just hiding in the galley kitchen, smashing a bottle of champagne right to the face.
Yeah,
she's delightful.
That is a great one. It did feel a little. That one did feel a little ham-fisted too. Of just like, it felt like almost like a Gilligan's Island. Like, yeah, everyone who's important is on this one boat, and they all have interlocking stories and everything. But it's
also the captain's first ever flight as captain.
Yeah, and he's flying
a brand new plane.
Yeah, the newest part of the fleet. They are getting a person who's never flown internationally to fly this brand new jet.
Now, dog, you're doing Buffalo to Cleveland for the first 2 years of your life.
Yeah. Well, they also did by introducing that element of, oh, it's his first flight as an actual captain, more than first officer. That was the second position. And also it being a brand new plane, I'm like, oh no, are they going to make this plane go down somewhere? Like, are they? I really was worried about that the entire episode, because I'm like, oh, what could this possibly be? Since it's clearly not
and
a commentary
I know it was
on workplace.
1963. It's a long time ago, but this whole crew just feels so inexperienced for doing a luxury jetliner New York to London leg. My only other entertainment reference for flight crews is the Gwyneth Paltrow, Mark Ruffalo rom-com Up in the air?
Yeah.
No, not that.
No?
Oh God.
Up in the air is George Clooney, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That's where George Clooney fires people.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
Oh God. View from the Top. That's it. View from the Top. The Gwyneth Paltrow, Mark Ruffalo rom-com. And when she becomes a flight attendant, they do an entire montage of her working her way up better and better flight legs before she can finally do international. And she does like the shittiest runs imaginable for ages. She's stuck on like Reno to Phoenix for like the first third of that movie. There is no way that Laura's on this crew. There's no way that Captain Dean is on this crew. None of you are going to London. You're all going to Milwaukee.
There is I truly, because you said that, I truly cannot wait for us to do LA to Vegas.
They're not even there yet, Rich. They're not even at LA to Vegas yet.
Those are two big airports.
So let's talk a little bit more about some of the crew members and some of the things that we're introduced to. So the only reason that Maggie is on this flight is because their other person who does this role on the plane, Bridget, who supposedly is the fiance of our pilot, just is missing. It sounds like she quit. And then we find out from our guy, from Dean, like, two things. One, if you are married, you can't be a flight attendant, which is insane. And then two, they got engaged during the Bay of Pigs, and talking about scenes that have no teeth to them. This was just such a throwaway scene that just did not... You could have just literally said, yeah, we got engaged during the Bay of Pigs. You have like a small flash or maybe like a photo across the screen of them, and then just like, that's it.
This is kind of like that Forrest Gumpy feeling too, where it's just like, we're gonna toss them in the middle of like global news conflict. It's also another Tommy Schlamme fingerprint moment.
And Maggie and Bridget are both pursers in the flight crew, a role which I know what it is, but if one of you would care to explain for the audience what a purser does.
Oh, they are the
and I definitely know,
of the flight.
And I definitely know what a purser is.
Yeah, Max, I'm glad you're withholding it from the audience, because you've told it to me off camera, and now I'm going to try to repeat to you on camera what it is. What, we all check in on our phones now. What the fuck was flying back then?
Well, Geoff, getting back to the actual plot of the show, or whatever it is, you've kind of started to touch on these flashback sequences. I feel like we need to dive into the excessive use of flashbacks to give important information.
Yeah, like there's no... Because we haven't built up these characters in any sense of like doing just the, hey, this is this person, or like them explaining themselves. We get there are two other flashbacks that are just insane in this show. One of them is seeing, and we talked about it a little bit, seeing Kate become a spy, almost this arranged meeting we find out Bridget with our head spy, Richard, where they meet in this Italian cafe. Cool.
It's a good spy name.
Great. Richard is an awesome spy name. And then we also get this scene where we find out, why is Laura, Margot Robbie's character, a flight attendant? Why is she so inexperienced in comparison to her sister? And that, I will just say, the wedding scene was one of just these scenes where it was like, why? Why am I watching this? What is this dialogue? Why is Margot Robbie crying? Like, there's a lot of things that are happening that I just looked at my TV and I exclaimed, why? Why did we destroy a car? Why? There were so many things. Whys? Why this pilot? Why did this happen?
Margot Robbie, basically our runaway bride from Connecticut. We get some fantastic motherly advice, which is just smile through it and I'll get some sedatives.
It's a great move. And then she responds with, "Arnar, I'm getting married."
But yeah, it's like we just kind of like exposition dump in flashbacks that are very, very short, but it's a lot of like hijinks and glamour. The robe scene with Kate getting, espionage schooled, has tiny little motorcycles and tight pants, and Captain Dean just being generally horny. That's saying nothing for the absolute insane Cuban Bay of Pigs scene that we've kind of touched on a little bit.
I want to talk about this scene in more depth, because we just get this idea of, we helped during the Bay of Pigs. To give historical context to the audience, Pan Am was a part of the various companies that helped bring prisoners or political prisoners to the U.S. during the Bay of Pigs. There are photos of it. It's pretty cool. I did some research.
That's what the
on
P
it.
in Pan Am stands for. Prisoner.
Oh yeah.
Thought it was pigs.
But the idea of this scene where it's just like, we've seen the woman, we've seen Bridget before. We've seen her after the Bay of Pigs incident. The idea that they're just like, well, Bridget isn't here, we can't leave, and then it's maybe 5 seconds, and then Bridget shows up, and we're like, oh, we didn't know if you were gonna make it.
And the string and the orchestra is swelling and the strings are stringing and we got this Forrest Gump ass scene again, and just one of the worst lines of dialogue in this show when Dean yells, "You're always disappearing on me," and Bridget yells, "I always come back," and Dean yells, "Then marry me." Like while they're on the gangway of this flight.
So this brings up a very interesting question for you two gentlemen. If a man or a partner of yours was to propose with the little wings they give pilots and children, instead of a ring, would you accept that as a proposal, or would you tell them to try again?
No, man, it's all about the sentimental value. There's so much meaning in that. What I can't respect is the Disney music swelling, the handoff, you don't see what's in her palm, and she says, "I can't marry you now," and he says, "Then say yes later." All of this like G-rated Pearl Harbor that we have going on.
I know. Yeah, I just like it. Everything. I hate to keep using this word because I don't know if either of you guys eat kosher, but I keep using this phrase ham-fisted. And I think they really need to tone it down. And this is where I think a lot of the appreciation for the nostalgia of the time is there, but what they went with instead of what Mad Men did, Mad Men is like prized for its subtlety. It is slow moving shit. It is, they are reacting to major events of the time. They're reacting to the Kennedy assassination. They're reacting to the MLK assassination and stuff like that. They didn't need to have Don Draper be like in Memphis, Tennessee while MLK got shot. You know what I mean? Like they didn't need to have him be part of like the Bay of Pigs like prisoner rescue. It's just so strange.
I now am just flooded with, if we're talking about shows that decided they had to talk about a certain moment, I am now just only thinking about the newsroom deciding they had to talk about Osama bin Laden being shot.
Yep.
And that is the only thing I'm thinking about. Do we want to just talk about that scene instead of this pilot now?
It's the difference between the way the newsroom did the like Osama bin Laden being shot versus the way that like Mad Men handled the Kennedy assassination, where it's like
they're seeing it on TV.
It's making a big spectacle of it versus just seeing the way a moment affects people. You're not trying to put these people into the moment itself. And Pan Am wants these people to be in the moment so bad. It wants to be so soapy.
Let's talk about that in another example in one of our other plot lines, and that is our espionage plot line, right? Kate's mission in this instance that we're told at the beginning of the show is she has these documents that she has to put into this Russian operative's suitcase so that he can potentially be caught and not allowed into the country. And this is just another instance of a scene where I was like, what are the stakes here? Like, what happens if she gets caught? She gets caught and they're all on a plane. He's not going to kill her in the middle of a plane. Like, what's the worst thing he's going to do? Yell at her? Like, there's nothing here where I was just like, and like, oh, Kate's so goddamn crafty. She gave him free champagne. And then her sister finally leaned into being a flight attendant. Like, the madness of this storyline was just insanity to me.
My favorite part of the David Harbour Russian operative storyline is when he's just like sitting in his seat, listening to cassette tapes without headphones of just people speaking Russian. And I'm sorry, if it's 1963, if we're in the middle of the Cold War, and there's just a mysterious man with a briefcase full of documents listening to a tape deck.
He's getting profiled.
Oh my God, yeah, no, that guy's getting taken out.
There was one, we talked a little bit about one of our other characters that I wanted to touch on, and that was Colette, right? This smooth French flight attendant, and her storyline fully revolves on she slept with a man that she thought was single. It turns out he has a wife and child that he did not tell her about. And this was one of those other instances of a very Mad Men feeling scene. But I also think in a show that had so many plot lines, it was the one that was the best acted of all of them. There was the most stakes associated with the smallest thing on this pilot. And
I think it feels
that should be the case.
Most realistic too, where it's just like, it's not we survived the Bay of Pigs and getting prisoners out. It's not Russian espionage in the Cold War. It's I work on a luxury airliner and this high profile man who I had sex with at a layover is on my flight with his family. Like, it's the most plausible, down to earth storyline. And it feels like the most kind of primetime soapy plotline of this show. This show, for reference, aired with Desperate Housewives as its lead-in in 2011. Granted, it's Desperate Housewives towards the end of its run, but still, they wanted to block this as a primetime soap. And the Colette storyline of seeing this man in the wild that she had an affair with is probably the most Desperate Housewives lead-in type of story.
Definitely.
Yeah, like literally serving, being in this position of servitude to someone that you had a romantic affair with, and then also to that person's wife and child, was great. And Max, I want to go ahead, Max. I think I know what
how
you're
did the wife find out? How did she know?
I know. How did she know? And why wasn't she mad at her own husband? Why was she mad at someone who she doesn't know?
Why is she blaming Colette saying don't send people's husbands?
It's the Times sort of thing, right? It's like, I
have no idea.
I hate that is the excuse that I'm going to give this show, that, back in the 60s, it was like women blamed women instead of blaming men based off of
Jeff,
patriarchy.
It's fine. You're on your third martini. Keep going.
But it was one of those things where it's just like, I loved the idea. The actress that played this wife, I think, did such a good job with her final line delivery of, we meet the child. The child's drawing a picture of a plane. And then when the wife forgets her, first of all, the idea that you intentionally forget your purse just so that you can go and yell at someone it's
hilarious.
Is absolutely insane. Like, it's such 5D chess to be like, so I'm gonna forget my purse on the plane, and then worst case, I lose my purse. They don't let me back on the plane.
Flawless plan.
If this was modern day, you're not allowed back on the plane. I am so sorry. You no longer have a purse.
And you know what stopped that? You know what stopped that? The Bay of Pigs.
If this was modern day, this whole confrontation would be on TikTok with like, damn, like, wife yells at stewardess for sleeping with her husband, like, link in bio.
But that final line delivery of, like, here's this picture to remind, you should put it on your fridge to remind you not to sleep with other women's husbands, was devastating.
I'm not putting that on my fridge. It's a shitty drawing.
Also, that kid doesn't know how to draw his mom. His mom was the same size as him. Like, that kid has no perspective. Tommy's an idiot. Like, you need to be worried about your child.
Yeah, they're almost as big as the plane. It's ridiculous.
I love a small segment where we just shit on child art. also, okay, so here's a sidebar question, because we're clearly all getting pretty worked up about this pilot. Do you think when someone makes child drawings, when they have child drawings on set, is there a grown adult set decorator that is going through and drawing things with crayon like a child?
No, it is a PA with $150,000 worth of debt from USC Film School.
Who's so proud of that drawing. They did it with their left hand, and they think they did a great job.
They put it on the fridge.
They said I could sit in the editing on the next episode. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how this pilot ends, right? We get this big reveal that David Harbour's character is not actually a Russian operative. He is a British operative.
Oh, shit.
And
it was all a test.
It was all a test. One thing I had to look up, though, because David Harbour obviously was told by the director to do a very specific choice of wiping off everything he touched as if DNA technology was a thing. This was 10 years before DNA technology was
they
even...
had fingerprinting.
Yes, but he sipped a cup and then he wiped where he sipped, Rich. Like he was wiping for every type of DNA technology.
You're right,
like,
that's dumb.
And it was so fun. I'm just sitting there watching it and I'm just like, oh yeah, the director was just like, you're a spy. You're worried about leaving any trace of you.
Maybe he's wearing pomegranate lip gloss and they could tell from the smell or the taste what
this
it was.
This is only sold to MI6 agents. It's obvious.
And
their first piece contract.
Of again another TV PL award for the most ham-fisted line for a cutscene when he says, "We call it a Cold War for a reason."
Oh my god,
Jesus!
So our final scene that we get is
I can't believe this is from the minds of Deuce Bigalow, male gigolo.
And
what
Deuce
happened?
Bigelow, European gigolo.
What happened, man?
So
it used to be a proper country.
Europe.
Rob Schneider used to be a heartthrob in this country. What happened to those times?
Time?
Those 2 years that we all thought.
The passage of time.
So let's talk about this final scene that we get, because it's two very different tables at the same bar. We have all of our flight attendants together, sort of joking about like their life and how they're the future. Margot Robbie's character represents all of them. She's the face of what the future of women is like. And then in the same fucking bar, we have Michael Mosley's character trying to help Dean Lorry, who just realized that his not real fiance, because she never said yes, is in the wind. And he's like, you see that table of women? That's why I'm in this job. Because I get to hook up with the future of women. Which is just like, what?
Because I get to bang people at the Sheridan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the two pilots just ripping shots. Be like, you see them broads over there? 2 more, barkeep.
Oh my god. And then in the window, we see Annabelle Wallace's character, Bridget, looking longingly at her potential fiance, and then just get into a cab and leave. That is our show. That is how this pilot ends. And I have to ask, because the curiosity is killing me, were there any things that you loved about this pilot that maybe we did not discuss?
I'll go. I did like the amount of red herrings they had to build suspense, like the flight attendant who was late being like kind of a radical, like anarchist seeming like vibe, the Russian spy, the just the spies in general, the fact that like it's a brand new plane and they're building in suspense that way. But if you really take a broader picture of it, nothing happens. Nothing happens this entire episode.
They fly to London. That's what happes. That's the only thing.
Great red herrings on it. Nothing happens when the red herrings are revealed.
Yeah, we got a day at work, a layover, a 6.5 hour flight, and 3 cutscenes back in time, all in a 44-minute pilot.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, I will just say again, I really liked Michael Mosley in this pilot. I think he did a great job with what he was given, which really was not much. He sort of shined in it. And also, like, Margot Robbie was not given many lines in this pilot. Like, if you look back and you watch, it was very much...
She's a face.
You are a face for this show. And I think Margot Robbie sort of did a fantastic job with what she was given in the scenes of drama, in being that, like, very timid person who's new at this job and doesn't know if they'll be able to do it.
Yeah, I won't say it as an actual serious like things I liked. The set deck and design of this show is gorgeous. Everything
$10 million
from
gorgeous.
it's $10 million worth of gorgeous set pieces, really period specific props, the uniforms. Everyone's so well dressed in this. It does look very cool. You have to kind of get over some of the, CGI airplane shots, very like 2011 TV CGI. But it is a very pretty, bright show. It feels incredibly network TV in its uplifting color palette. The music absolutely kills me though, but it looks very pretty.
Out of curiosity, because we talked a lot about the $100 million budget. I'm sorry, $10 million budget for this. I wanted to see what type of plane you could buy with $10 million so they wouldn't just make this. And they could just buy another plane instead. You can buy an Embraer Phenom 300, which just became the most popular private jet in the U.S. $10 million price tag.
Hell yeah. Like, I will say, speaking on that, I was very impressed that the producers of the show did not do the lazy thing, which is use the same set for the Bay of Pigs that they did for the majority of this pilot when they were quote unquote flying to Europe. Because I could 100% see someone being like, why would we buy two planes? Or why would we buy two different layouts of a plane? That'd be super fucking expensive. So I'm curious now, what were your wait a minute moments with this pilot that maybe we didn't discuss?
I mean, I've got to go back and throw another wrench at Jack Ormond of Jag and Dr. Vegas fame when they explained how Laura Cameron became the face of Pan Am in Life magazine. And she says, I had just graduated from stewardess school and was crossing the street to meet my sister. This absolute, I was mopping the floors at Sun Records and they asked me if I could sing type of story. This whole it's absolutely ridiculous. I was grabbing a soda at the malt shop and they said, you kid, you could be in pictures, and that boy was James Dean type story.
Yeah.
It is just so ridiculous to me. Also, just the concept of I had just graduated from stewardess school. Like, I know it's a real thing, but it's so ridiculous to hear it said out loud.
Rich, what about you?
Oh, God. Okay. So I want to know if anyone out there is listening or is connected to anyone involved. If you were an extra on this show, if you were an extra in Pan Am, please write into us, because there are two moments that completely took my eyes off the scene. One being at Margot Robbie's wedding flashback, where there is a pregnant woman drinking wine because it's 1963 and rubbing her pregnant belly like a cartoon bear. And I want to know, she is just like, she is very clearly, she's so pregnant. She's so pregnant. And she's like full glass of white wine, and with other hand, just like, oh man, I bet the baby loves that. And then, okay, then there was another moment in the Italian cutaway scene where they're clearly just on the city street in a Universal lot. Nothing special about that one. And all the extras are doing that one talking with your hands Italian thing at each other at the same time. What were they directing you people to do? What the fuck was that? If you're an extra, please write in. I want to know what the vibe of the set was, because what are you doing? You're calling so much attention to yourself.
One thing that I loved, I love when I watch pilots is, especially if we do things that are like early 2000s or like late 90s, you start to recognize faces and you're like, oh, this was before they did this, or maybe this was like a small job. Liz Kukowski is a flight attendant in this as an extra. That name might be familiar to y'all because she was in things like Forgetting Sarah Marshall. She's also a big writer. She did things like The Last Man on Earth, Community. She did 12 episodes, as well as like the story editing. And she's just in the background. It's not even a credited role. And I was like, hell yeah. This was just a day and probably writing Community episodes on the side and just wanted to be on set. Like,
I love it.
As far as wait a minute moments for me, the entire scene in the beginning, which of weighing women, I know it was quote unquote a sign of the times and brand experience, but weighing women, making sure they're wearing a girdle. I have never heard the word girdle used in 40 minutes than
I'm
watching this show.
I'm still not positive what it is. probably should have looked that up because I was like, I know what that is.
Next episode of TV Pilot's License, we explain to Rich in the game of the week what a girdle is in the fewest words possible.
Rich's girdle of the week.
Well, gentlemen, we have one more question for us. It is our in-flight question, and it's very simple.
Chicken or fish?
God damn it. God damn it.
Well, actually, that leads us really closely into it, and it was this show is about the golden age of flying, the golden era of flying, where there were a lot of new amenities and experiences that were available based off of the length of flights that previously were not available. And now that we live in an age where economy and budget flying is so prevalent, what amenity would you like from the golden age to be available to you today, just with the cost of a ticket, not with first class, not with economy, just when you get on the fucking plane?
Mm-hmm. Oh man, I'm taking this one from the Clipper Majestic itself. I want that lounge up front with big curved banquettes. I want that communal sitting area with the round couches in there. That was sexy. I need a place where I could get up and stretch my legs somewhere else that I could sit without a seatbelt for a little bit and just stretch my legs.
There was I was watching the White House Plumbers for a little bit not so long ago, and one of the scenes they had was on a flight where they had an upstairs lounge with a piano up there, where they just had like you can go upstairs and have like catered drinks while watching someone play the piano.
Oh man, that guy's playing the most beautiful jazz, and all of a sudden they hit some turbulence.
Now it's experimental jazz. I personally would love to see a flight with only 40 people on it. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
that would be something nice to come back. Although I realize I probably would not be in the class of people who would be able to afford that. If only 40 people are flying to London.
Yeah, one of the things that, we didn't see meal service on this plane. I bet you it was a hell of a load better than what we get on planes today, right? As much as I love getting my little Biscoff cookies on a Delta flight and like having those with coffee, I would trade that in a fucking heartbeat for an actual hot meal that wasn't microwaved. Like that would be a delight. And please just feed people in economy. They pay.
Yeah, don't get us wrong. I love a little bag of Sheila's Brownie Brittle on a Southwest flight. But
it's brownie, but it's dehydrated.
They had cocktails with garnishes on this Pan Am flight.
They had toothpicks around a turbulent flight. I'm sure that went well all the time.
Oh, also, one of the things that they did on this flight was they were like, oh yeah, if we like the people, we'll just give them a bottle of champagne as they walk off the plane. 100%.
Yeah.
I would, Spirit, if you're listening, if you just like sort of toss in like, oh yeah, the best behaved people on our flight get a bottle of champagne. No more TikTok videos. We lose Spirit TikTok.
It's Spirit. You give them $5 and they will just huck a buzzball at your head.
Well, that was our in-flight question. We'll talk a little bit more about how to submit those at the end of the episode. But let's talk about the history of this show. So there was one season of the show and 14 episodes.
Max is super excited.
One of the things this show did
canceled.
to try to promote viewership was like right in that really weird time where like downloading TV shows or streaming was starting to be considered a major factor for the success of television shows. So they actually had the first 9 episodes available to download for free on things like iTunes, as well as other platforms, just to make sure that there was increased interest in viewership. Now, one of the things that Max did not discuss that I found really interesting when I was looking up this show is when you think about a series being ordered, usually there's a certain number of episodes ordered, and then once they decide, hey, we like this show, they'll order a similar amount of episodes. This is one of the few shows I've ever seen that the second order of episodes was 1. They said you get 1 more episode.
That sucks. That sucks. How do you not just give up? How do you not just say like, oh, we have to have one conclusive story that takes 44 minutes?
100% it was, you get one because there's enough people who are watching this that we don't want them to write angry letters to us. Let's talk about why I think ABC thought that. The series premiere, based off of the success of Desperate Housewives, even that last season, got 11.06 million viewers. So really pretty substantial at the time. It dropped down in the second episode to 7.76 million, which isn't that's not bad. But
oh no, they're losing altitude.
God damn it.
By the final episode, we were at 3.77 million viewers. So we saw a fairly substantial drop. Now, when this show was canceled, there was an interesting thing that happened. And Rich, this is where we have a big reveal. What if I told you that Amazon Prime considered doing an Arrested Development to the show and picking it up for a second season to be exclusively on Amazon Prime as they were trying to build up their streaming service? Yeah, there was actually like 3 weeks after the show, Deadline produced an article basically being like, hey, there are very serious talks going on right now at Amazon Prime to pick up this show. Other networks have passed, but Amazon Prime is like, we want this potentially. And that did not happen. This show was actually a internationally shown show. There's a ton of countries. It was like liked a lot of different places, like just some of them. It was shown throughout Europe, Australia, almost all of South America, New Zealand. It was very popular in Asia as well.
No, Jeff, those are just the places that Pad Ab flies to.
So I have one last thing for you two. What if I told you there was an award history with this show?
Oh,
I'd believe it.
I would not believe it because it got canceled halfway through the season.
So this show had 10 nominations, which, to make you even sadder, is yes, more than Party Down got with all of its original seasons when it was on Showtime. Here's my favorite part about that. There were a few Emmy nominations. Not surprisingly, they were all around like CGI and set design, which is still
creative arts.
Yeah, they were creative arts, which is still. There was also an outstanding cinematography for a single camera series. There were 2 awards that caused me to sit down and question my own taste. One of those was this got a People Choice Awards nomination for Favorite New TV Drama.
Oh boy.
And then it also got a Gallica Award, which is for the Society of LGBTQ plus Entertainment Critics, for Unsung TV Show of the Year. So there were enough people that looked at this show and said, are we sleeping on this? Do we need to give this more show?
I could never
love?
sleep on flights.
So yeah, that is this show. That is the legacy currently of this show. And I have one additional question for you guys before we talk a little bit about Rich's Game of the Week. It is Oscars week, and I'd love to hear from the two of you. What was your favorite movie, even though we focus on TV, that you watched for this Oscars year of 2023? Rich, I'm going to start with you. What was your favorite movie that
That's
you saw?
That's a great question. And I'm totally not looking up what movies came out this year. Because I know all of them. I know them all so well, and I saw all of them. Personally, I gotta be honest, I fucking loved Barbie. I love the Barbie movie so much. I cried laughing. I really, really enjoyed it. I really came in with low expectations because I thought it was just going to be like an over-marketed thing. Didn't get a chance to see Oppenheimer yet, which I'm excited to watch at some point. But that and Poor Things obviously was terrific. I would say that and Poor Things are my 2 favorite from the year.
Max, what about you?
Number one, far and away for me from this past year was Past Lives. Celine Song's debut feature film. Absolutely gorgeous, intimate drama on the way our lives intersect and what could be and what has been. Just absolutely gorgeous. Pretty much a three-hander of a movie from an excellent playwright. Go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. But otherwise, the thing I've probably seen the most this year was Barbie, and seeing that in a packed theater was such a delight. That truly is a movies are back, baby kind of moment. Like just seeing that at a crowded house and having everyone laugh and cry and yell at Nicole Kidman during the AMC pre-show. Just a real delight to watch.
They're phasing it out as of now. They're phasing out our beloved Nicole Kidman AMC.
No,
video
dude. As of March 1st, they are dropping not one, not two, but 3 new Nicole Kidman 30-second spots that are going to air in rotation. You don't know what you're going to get. You have to make sure to go to as many movies as possible so you can see all 3 Nicole Kidman spots.
I love that one line of the Nicole Kidman video where she's like, "Oh no." 3 times, baby, I got him.
So I have 4 movies that I absolutely love this year. And I'm going to say them in the order that I saw them. And the first one was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was absolutely one of the most beautifully animated films and such a creative movie as well. Like it's one of those movies where you did not need to see the first one in the series, and I cannot wait for the third one. The second movie was Barbie. Barbie was fantastic. I think that it was literally just a juggernaut of a film that, as you said, since the pandemic, it was the first movie I saw that I was like, people are going to come back to the movie theaters. People are going to come back to see movies like this.
Everyone in the theater dressed up like their favorite physicist going to see Oppenheimer.
Oh my God. Third movie for me, maybe I just have 3, is The Color Purple. And I know that movie, there's already a version of it, but the story of The Color Purple is truly a magnificent rising of a woman. And the Broadway show is fine. And I say that because it takes the story and sort of, as we've talked about on this podcast, Disneyifies it, where it takes away some of the storylines that are not child friendly and sort of is like, oh, we're not going to talk about that too much. We're going to allude to it and we're going to just push it and shove it into the corner. Fantasia, when I heard she was taking on the role that she took on her in the Broadway production, owned that role and made me just gasp at how powerfully it was done. And I cannot tell people to go and see that movie enough. If you have not watched it, go and find it. It is, even if you don't know the story, it is so beautiful and you'll enjoy yourself watching it. But yeah, I had to throw a little bit of Oscars in and a little bit of movies, especially for this week. Rich, first of all, the two of you, thank you for entertaining me on what you guys watched. But Rich, what is your game of the week?
Go figure. I found a little bit of trivia on planes. The birds of the car world. All right.
Rich definitely knows what planes are, guys.
Yeah, I'm 100% sure. I've seen them and have been inside them. Okay. Number one, I'm going to let you guys both jump in on these. All right. The Concorde jet, which is, if you remember, was a jet that was popularized in the 90s, which unfortunately has been grounded since. It is a supersonic jet that promised to take passengers from New York to London in 3 hours. It had to be specially designed because the air friction would cause A, the engines to freeze, B, the plane to grow in length, C, the wings to fall off, D, the glass to shatter.
Also E, all the passengers to throw up.
And the thing that they don't want to talk about and why it's out of production, a lot of plane crashes.
Fun.
I'm gonna say engines freezing.
I think that's it, Max. I'm gonna agree with you.
It is the plane would grow 6 to 11 inches in the process of flying at a supersonic speed. Number
Grower,
2.
not a shower. All right, there we go.
Had to get it in there. All right. The oldest operating airport in the world is in A, France, B, England, C, the US, D, Japan.
I mean, we invented flight, baby. It's got to be the U.S.
I'm going to say France just to be a little bit different.
It is in Maryland. It's operating since 1909. All right. The largest operating airport by square footage is in A, the US, B, UK, C, China, D, Saudi Arabia.
I'm going to say China for square footage.
Can you repeat those, Rich, for me?
The US, the UK, China, and Saudi Arabia.
Let's do it big. Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia is right. The largest airport, just edging out, I want to say Dallas-Fort Worth, I think, is the second largest by square footage, or possibly, and I know Atlanta's on there too, but Atlanta's the busiest airport, but I did not know before writing this the square footage of the biggest.
Well, Rich, thank you for your game of the week. We
come to
a land on our flight with 2 final questions for each of you. And one is based off of the pilot. Would you continue watching this show? And then secondly, this is going to be a little bit of a variation on this. We could obviously reboot this. We could try again, right? There is interest. There is pick back up for shows like this of recent. Or we could have the entire original cast come back. Yes, I'm talking about Margot Robbie in her current prime and redo 1 season of this, but make it like prestige TV. So you can do one of those 2 things. The choice is yours of whether or not you're going to greenlight it. Rich, why don't you tell us what you're thinking?
I am not watching another episode of this. Maybe if I'm in an altered state, as it were, I'm like, oh yeah, keep it going. I'm going to fall asleep during one of these episodes. I guarantee it. Other than that, no. and please don't remake this. You already have Margot Robbie's not coming to do TV. I'm sorry. We have lost her to that forever. She was in a Scorsese movie. She was the lead, and she was the lead in I, Tonya. I can't remember who directed that, but it was a beautiful film. She's too good. And this is not a disparagement on anyone who does TV, but she's too good for TV now. So it's not going to happen. Please don't do this. We have the flight attendant. That was pretty good for a season. Cut it out. Don't do this.
Max, what about you?
Yeah, I've got shows I like about flight attendants, shows I like about the 1960s, and shows I like about espionage. I don't need a show that combines all 3. This is a pass for me. And no, we don't need to remake this. This is one of the most ham-fisted scripts we've done on this podcast. Everyone in this show is doing better things right now. Margot Robbie is not only starring in movies, but she is producing them alongside her husband as well. She's a powerhouse. Christina Ricci's killing it. David Harbour, you'll figure it out. We don't need to do any more of this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big no for me. This is a show that's trying to be like other shows. And can't decide what type of show it wants to be. And I don't need that. I want you to be confident in your choices. Yeah. I want you to be like, I am an espionage show. No, I am a flight show. Don't try to be a Swiss Army knife.
And to clarify, if you're still listening to this episode, you should watch this pilot. This is not to say that you shouldn't check it out. It's streaming for free. You should check it out. Please watch it.
We are going to link to this pilot in the description of this episode on Spotify, in the description on YouTube. Watch this pilot, in an altered state. Maybe make a drinking game of it. Every time you hear the ding dong, have a shot. Why not? But like, as far
I told
as
you to stop calling me the dig dog.
Oh,
as
no,
far
Jeff,
as,
you're letting him in on the TV Pilot's License drinking game.
As far as remaking this show, I'm proud of you two for not taking the bait. I wanted to just see if I could get either of you two to bite. Yeah, absolutely not. Everyone, for the most part, everyone who is in this show is often doing pretty decent things with their career or had a pretty decent career afterwards. There's no need to come back and rehash a pilot or a show that only had a few episodes one season and then a failed attempt at getting picked up by another network. And yeah, like there's more interesting stories out there. This show, one other thing I have a gripe with, I understand you own the rights to the Pan Am branding and all that shit. This could have just been called Airplane in 60s and we would have been fine. With all that said, our flight has come to a land. And I just have two final questions for you, John. Or, excuse me, our flight has come to a land, and I'd like to let people know, where can they find you two? Rich, where can folks find you?
You can find me totally not Googling what a plane is and how it works and what it does. And then you can also find me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich. You can find original sketch comedy for Max and myself at Dadwagon Comedy on TikTok.
Max, what about you?
You can catch me claiming that unused bottle of free champagne from today's flight. You can find me on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
And you can find me trying to sneak a passport into someone's pocket. Oh no, they caught me. You can also find me on social media at Run Jeff Run. You can find the TV Pilot's License anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube at TV Pilot's License. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, maybe a suggestion about what we can do next, you can always shoot us an email at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com or give us a call at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out for our Instagram for sneak previews of some of the stuff that we got coming up. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then,
adventure calls.
Oh, damn. I hate it.